Alfie is a WOR race winner.
Jensen makes it 5 in a row.
Danny Berejnay wins on debut.
Shinaka returns to winning ways in WOR.
Season 12 sees a new man. It's Shadow. He is your Xbox champion.
And Jensen is the new king of PlayStation.
From the back row of the grid, against all odds, Nicholas Longy wins the title.
Goes past the safety car.
What has gone?
Spins.
Stunning move from the Spaniard.
He's taken out Rambo.
We're going 4 wide down to turn 1.
Oh, he's taking him out.
The captain riders collide.
Tomek to the inside.
Shadow wins the Brazil. Absolutely sensational.
But
I've muted us. There we go. We're live now. You've just missed the introduction and everything like that. It is not going according to plan tonight with my graphics or whatever. But there we go. You basically missed us. Hi, everyone. Welcome along to WOR. We are here for Season 13, round number 11 of the Championship, Singapore Grand Prix. My name is James Head. Aidan Carter on the right-hand side of me. And Aidan, people can now hear us. Singapore tonight, it is going to be a really interesting race, given, of course, how the championship standings obviously went last week.
Yeah, well, it's just as per usual. Nothing seems to go right for us on World Online racing streams, do they? They always go wrong. But yeah, like you say, it's going to be interesting. It is really going to be an interesting race, like you say. Singapore, as you mentioned before we unmuted ourselves, was it's an interesting track race wise. It always provides great racing, even if it is a bit of a longer race, and sometimes it can be a bit of a slow burner. But it is definitely going to be interesting. It's very different to a lot of tracks we've had so far this season. So yeah, a little bit of a different challenge for these guys. And obviously, last time out, like you say, we had the top two in the championship not here. It was a prime opportunity for Jensen and Karafalides to get back into this championship race. And Karafalides scored solid-ish points, but didn't really do much in that sense. And his mid-season dip in form has continued. And unfortunately, he's not here tonight. So that's kind of stalled out. And Jensen, I think for the fourth time or fifth time this season now, has crashed out of a really, really good opportunity to score some good points. So, yeah, they had a prime opportunity last time out to try and get back into that championship race, and unfortunately, neither of them really did that. So, coming into tonight, it still looks like a two-horse race.
It does indeed still look like a two-horse race. Everyone did see us, by the way, on the camera for a second time, just so they could actually hear us this time. But there we go. Yeah, Rowan leading the way on the championship still. Namaya in second. Both of them, of course, didn't turn up last week. Really strong performances, though, from Steph and Tom. We were mentioning this before we unmuted ourselves, that Steph and Tom were towards the top end of the field last week. Of course, first and second, indeed, last week for VSR and the Shazoo man. And I think they've got a really good run of form. I mean, look at Tom's results, certainly. He's had two second place finishes in a row. He's committing to the end of the season here in WR, already picked up a race win in Belgium. And he's only, 44 points off the championship lead. Now, I might be saying that and thinking 44 points doesn't seem like much. It isn't. Considering how the top six in the championship are covered by 44 points, it's really anybody's game, I think, certainly coming into the final races of the season.
Yeah, it really is at this point. And the problem as well for our top two in the championship is, as you can see, Namaya, I think, again, potentially is not here tonight by the looks of the Aston Martin lineup that we've got tonight. That suggests to me Namaya, again, isn't able to attend, which would be 3 races in a row after such a good run of form for Namaya of 5 podiums on the bounce. He's then not attended the next 3 races. And Rowan's attendance has been shocking. He's raced less than he's actually attended so far this season, and he's our championship leader. So if anybody can get on a good run of form and consistently score good points for the next few rounds, then they could be right at the front. And definitely Steph is one of those to look at. He could be definitely one that can fight his way to the front. Obviously, a win last time out. He's finished in the top 5 in every single race he's taken part in so far this season. He's again here tonight, of course. And yeah, like you said, like you mentioned as well, we've got a good run of form for Tom, 2 podiums in a row, a win as well. And he could be another one to feature at the front as well. So any of them get a good run of form and they could be right at the front of the championship. I mean, after tonight, if Steph gets another podium, then he could potentially be then, well, if he gets a podium, he'll be ahead of Karafalides and into third. So that's already something for him to target. And by the looks of things, I don't think Rowan's here tonight either, because we've got Daniel in that Red Bull for the first time this season. So again, our top 2 in the championship not attending.
Top 2 in the championship not attending, but it really brings, I think, those guys who want to try and perform, the likes of the Jensens, the likes of your Stephs, the likes of your Toms, all coming towards the fore. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if they're the top 3 by the end of tonight in terms of the racing here in Singapore. Looking at the track map, of course, in question here in Singapore, maybe the final time in this current layout, 5 kilometres in length, 3.1 mile, 23 turns, 3 DRS zones, 1 down the start finish straight, 1 down the hill, 1 down in towards Raffles Boulevard at turn number 7 towards Memorial Corner, and then 1 just after the Anderson Bridge coming across in towards turn number 14. And of course, Aidan, as I mentioned there at the start of the track map introduction, it is going to be changing next year because there's a lot of development work going on in Singapore. So basically, all the turns from turn 15, I think it is, all the way to where the grandstand used to be, and then in towards where the Singapore Eye is, that is all getting removed. It's going to be 1 long straight, and then you've got the final chicane, and then you've got the double left-hander going through. So I think it's going to be 17 turns instead of 23.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change the profile of the circuit a lot, especially taking out so many corners in that final sector. The final sector was where you could make or lose a lot of your time in the lap around this track. It was where the majority of the corners were. It was very slow speed, so it was quite easy to make a mistake in that final sector, especially with how many corners there were in so many quick succession. It was really easy to overheat your tyres on a qualifying lap. And with that potentially going, well, I say potentially, definitely going, it has been confirmed. With that going for next year onwards, I believe it will be going completely. So with that going, that kind of changes the feel of the circuit with so many less corners now, and with the final sector being what I believe 4 real turns now, isn't it? You've got obviously turn 14 at the end of the second DRS straight, and then all of the corners after that are gone until the final chicane, and then the last corner, which is technically 2 corners, but in the grand scheme of things is just one long double apex corner. So that's reduced that final sector from about 9 corners to 5, and that really changes the dynamic of this track. I think it will make a lot of difference to racing, qualifying, what tires you use, and how your setups work as well. Obviously, there's a bit more high speed in it now. You don't have to have as much downforce anymore because there will be another straight added into the equation as well, potentially another overtaking opportunity. So yeah, it will definitely change the dynamic of the track. On the face of things, it doesn't look like that big of a change, but in the grand scheme of things of how this track has always functioned, it will definitely make a huge difference.
Yeah, it will make a huge difference indeed. Tom is the first man out on track, down in towards what is now the new Singapore Sling. Just the left-hander coming through turn number 10. Used to be a chicane, of course, for the first ever night race in Singapore in 2008. Can you remind everyone what might have happened there in 2008? We had PK Gate, of course, or Renault Gate, or whatever you could like to call that bit of tomfoolery from the Renault team. Of course, Alonso took the win that day, and of course they got thrown out the year after because of the results and because of PK obviously working with his team with a bit of finance, with a bit of money in play, which has obviously been the cost of attention, I think, to Formula 1 in recent weeks with the breach cap, of course, from Red Bull and Aston Martin. We might get into that a little bit and a little bit of the politics of that a little bit later on. But Tom is there coming under the underpass, coming through the left-hander of turn 21, and then into the double left of turns 22 and 23, which will soon be turn 16 and 17, as Tom now comes through the final corner on the run to the line. We'll see what the Brit can do on the run down. Now in towards turn number 1, through the left-hander of turn number 1, through the right-hander of turn number 2, and then to the left-hander of turn number 3, as we flick left once again through the kink of 4, and then in towards the right-hander of turn number 5, and onto Raffles Boulevard, which is of course the first DRS zone really around this track. Of course, his first one was down the stop from the straight, the second one of course being down in towards Raffles Boulevard. 26.6 through the first sector from Tom, as now comes through Memorial Corner at turn number 7, and then in towards the right-hander of turn number 8, and then embarking down on this really narrow sequence of corners, coming to the left-hander turn number 9, getting all the way hemmed out towards the wall. Don't hit that wall on the right-hand side, you'll pick up end plate damage back for sure, as Tom now comes down in towards the Singapore Sling, looking quite good so far in the streets of Singapore. Through the right-hander 11, could have took a little bit too much curb, now coming through the Anderson Bridge, coming across the bridge in towards turn 13, and then on a slight downhill run in towards turn 14 at the end of this middle sector. This is a very assured lap so far from Tom. 103.3 matches my expectations of this lap so far. As it comes out of 14, again, very wide on the exit, but you've got to try and maximise that, and this is where the track is going to change, of course. We've got the traditional layout of 16 and 17, and then, of course, as he hits the wall on the right-hand side there, Tom really clipping the DHL barriers on the right-hand side, as now Tom comes under the grandstand through 18 and 19. All of this section, apart from these 2 corners here, are going to be removed for the Grand Prix, of course, next year in Singapore, as Tom now comes through the final couple of corners on the run towards the line. And that tap at the wall didn't really cost him. 35.9 is a good lap for the first run.
Yeah, it's a really good lap for a first runner. Just with Harry, he's been about 3/10 down ever since the middle point of the lap as Jensen crosses the line, and Jensen quite a way off actually. He was half a second down by the end of the second sector, so that suggests to me some sort of error in that middle part of the lap for Jensen, because that's not what you would typically expect of him, especially in qualifying trim. Just seeing everybody else coming to the line at the moment. Smalley crosses the line, slowest of the times we've got so far, but I'm on board with Steph now, who's just taken a little bit too much of the curb there at turn number 21, just kind of bottomed out a little bit on the inside of the corner. He didn't get the best run through the corner, crosses the line, and only a 36.5 on the board for Steph at the moment, puts him P6 on the grid. But a bit of a spread field a little bit at the front at the moment. Fede now goes P4, which is a bit higher than we've seen Fede really ever on this game so far. He's struggled so much on this game, so it's nice to see him a little bit further up as Rudy goes into the 35s in second position, the only other driver in the 35s at the moment. But like I said, yeah, it's a bit spread out, isn't it, at the front of the field? There's got the 2 at the top of the timesheets in the 35.9s, and then it's about 2/10 back to Harry as Asacombe now goes to the top of the timesheets on a 35.8, which is again not a surprise. Asacombe's been so strong in qualifying, that's been his strong suit all the way through this game cycle so far, no matter what league is in. So Asacombe to the top, but again, yeah, we're kind of split out into little groups of cars. It's a really close battle for 6th between Fede all the way down to Fedes Piga really in 13th, but then you've got drivers behind that who have just struggled on their opening laps. And Dan Spreen at the moment, the only one with no time on the board.
Yeah, Dan Spreen, the only one actually not to come out. I think he came out, but I think he invalidated this and next lap, so that's why he came back into the pit lane. As to come out on top, I watched his final couple of corners, and he was so wide coming off the turn 22 apex, basically, to the left-hand of turn 22. He basically clipped the outside curb. He got bottomed down on the curb, and he lost, I would say, around half a tenth of a second. It might not seem like much, but that is a mistake he can correct, of course, for his second run. Has to come out on top, Tom in second, Rudy there in third, and I'm honestly surprised that Rudy is up there, given some of his exploits in other leagues, which we're not going to talk about on this live stream, but I know Aiden knows what I'm on about, certainly, in terms of Rudy. Has to come out on top, Tom in second, Rudy in third, but really good lap times being set by these guys. Of course, towards the top end of the field, you've got Harry, Jerry, of course, who competed in TML last night. He did well that in Britain last night and was really up there with Black Box in terms of that race. So Jerry has got previous form in league racing this week. Fede there in 6th. Am I dare saying this is Fede's debut? I don't think I've seen him, or because I've got short-term memory loss. It might be that I have seen him, but I've just forgot about it. But he's there in 6th, and at this moment, you could technically call him best of the rest.
Yeah, I would say so. He is the best of the rest at the moment, isn't he? He's kind of at the front. I'm kind of struggling to see whether this is his first time. I only have really seen him in PSGL when he really struggled and wasn't really a factor in PSGL. So sometimes the two leagues blur together as to when I see them performing. But either way, 6th on the grid for him so far. I'm sure he'd be pretty happy with that if it stayed like that. So hopefully he can find a little bit more time and improves, just as everybody else will improve in the session. Dan Spreen now the only one out on, well, as I say that, he was the only one out on track. Jerry and Harry have just come out of the pit lane, but Dan will be the next one to start a lap in the old Aston Martin, which, thank the Lord, as of next week, I believe, this will be no longer the to see that Aston Martin is getting its upgrade along with a lot of other cars in this field as well. They'll be changing, which will be nice to see. So we can say goodbye to this first generation Aston Martin AMR22, and we can see the second one coming in next week, which is nice to see. And we'll see what Dan Spreen can do. But again, for Dan Spreen, qualifying's not really been his strong suit this season, so I think he'll be happy potentially just to be off the back row.
Yeah, definitely. So apologies if we had a little bit of a stream issue there. I clicked on YouTube, looking at the comment section, and we just sort of went off on OBS. Still fine now. Dan Spreen is on a lap coming in towards turn 4 and then through the right-hander of turn number 5. Atlas, by the way, saying in the comment section, I'm the best commentator. I don't think I am,
Wow.
to be honest. No love given to my
Nice.
co-commentator on the right-hand side here. It's only because Atlas beat Nardi Perez and EML on Wednesday, and that's why he's called the best commentator. Dan Spreen, not on the best lap. 27.3 in the first sector was some way off what the top guys were setting. Of course, Dan doesn't really normally have the pace compared to these guys, and I've got to be honest, he's a bit like me around this track. Shaky, just not full of confidence at all. And obviously you've got to be inspired, I think, in terms of a track like Singapore. You've got to really commit, and committing too much over the curb there with turn 11 cost him another round at 10th of a second. I would not be surprised if Dan Spreen backed off this lap, because this has looked, I'm going to put it bluntly, like an absolute chopper.
Yeah, it's looked very messy, hasn't it? This lap so far has taken a lot of curb everywhere. The problem for him now is he's got so much traffic that we're all going to have to back off of one another as they space out for their laps, and I'm sure that's going to compromise him. Yeah, he's already up behind one of the Alfa Romeos and he's backed off straight away. So there you go, there's that traffic we were talking about. He was never really, it was, yeah, running out of sequence everybody else around a track like Singapore is not ideal, because even though it is quite a long track in terms of time, a lot of people are going to have to space themselves out. We've got pretty much a full grid tonight, so there's always going to be this train in the final sector of people slowing themselves down. Just riding with Jerry, he's the furthest along then on a lap at the moment. He is currently P5 on the grid, like you said, did pretty well in TML last night, and he's done pretty well in WOR this season. If I'm not mistaken, he did win on track at least at Canada this season from the back of the grid, so he's had a good season so far, as Jerry is as a reserve, I believe, as he heads all the way to the wall there, coming down the other side of the Anderson Bridge at the end of the second sector, and he's 2 cents up at the moment. So good lap so far. He can find a little bit more time in this final sector. He could just dip into the 35s, but at the moment, at least, if it stays stagnant with where he was in the second sector, he will jump comfortably into 4th position. So we'll see what he can do in the final sector. But so far, at least, a good improving time from Jerry here.
Yeah, really good, really committed as well on the power coming through the left-hander there of 18 and 19 underneath the grandstand through 20 and 21. Again, looking good through the final couple of corners. He should go into the gap between Rudy and Harry. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't. On the run to the line. Oh, he actually goes second. 35.8. What am I talking about? Harry there second. And sorry, Harry now goes quickest. It's Jerry that's now third. Harry now quickest. Asicum in second. He's 200 up coming out of the first sector with a 26.6. Rudy is on a good lap. He's coming through the grandstand section. 103.4 in that middle sector is there, or thereabouts from what we saw there from Jerry. So Rudy trying to match his Talon Factory teammate, of course, out on track tonight as Jensen now goes 6th. More like it from him as Rudy now comes through and toward the final couple of corners. On the run toward the line, the Dutchman, and he stays 5th and only 100th improvement in the end. So that was disappointing from Rudy, given that he's a 10th of a second up. Feddy is up in the middle sector as well. He comes through and he's actually 103.5 in the middle sector. So that's not too bad from the Shazoo man as he comes out of turn 14 and 15. Harry out on top, Asicum in second, Jerry in third. I'm not sure if there's anybody else here on board a lap. I think Krypton's just gone 7th as well, which is a good lap time from him. And actually more improvements as Pedro Silva goes 7th for GTZ.
Yeah, good lap from Pedro Silva. Of course, he was on pole, wasn't he, last time out in the previous race and had a horrible race by his standards, unfortunately. Fedis Picas crashed, unfortunately, underneath the grandstand. Yeah, that's a bit of an odd position. And as Asicome now goes back to the top of the timesheets with a 35.5, I was riding with Fede. He clipped the wall in the middle part of the final sector, so he's not going to improve on that time that he was 2/10 up on. So that would have been a nice improvement. But yeah, like I said, Pedro Silva, pole position last time out, had a horrible race, so not a surprise to see him up there again in this qualifying session. But Asicome back at the top, but now Harry into second position. And I think it's fair to say for Harry, we've not really seen much of Harry this season. He's kind of been a solid midfielder so far this season as Harry, hasn't he? He's been featuring kind of around the 6th and 7th place finishes at best for the majority of the season, and the majority of races he's taken part in. So this is definitely higher than we have seen from Harry so far this season, which is nice to see. Maybe this is a track that suits him just that little bit more, and this is one of those tracks where you will find specialist drivers who enjoy it more than others, as you do with pretty much every street circuit on this game. You will find drivers that prefer it compared to others. And just keeping with the Haas drivers there, I think the next drivers to be finishing laps are the only ones on laps at the moment. Arocca currently down in 11th position, started off the season with a podium, did Arocca, and has just fallen by the wayside really ever since then as he crosses the line and he goes P7 with a 36 flat. So a good improvement there from Arocca. Tom, the other Haas driver, has invalidated at some point in the lap in the middle sector, so he will not be improving on P4.
And he just goes for a slide coming under the grandstand of 17 and 18 there. That was neat from Tom. And again, not sure if he realises this is not Tokyo, and this is certainly not drifting, but Tom there in 4th position, 35.9. He, of course, can try and improve, but Asicum out on top. Harry there in 2nd. And actually, a little bit about Harry. Of course, he's the FER, I believe he's the FER manager, if I'm not mistaken, so little wonder he doesn't really drive in leagues. But when he does drive in leagues, he's always consistent, no matter where I'm commentating. He always produces really good performances. Like SRC, for example, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, he produced a really good performance for FER. They were up there in terms of the standings there. So Harry is a good driver, and we are recognising his talent now in 2nd position in WOR. And currently, I mean, the champion from that season, Jensen, is 4/10 behind him, out on track. And that, I think, will buoy a lot of people with a lot of confidence, given how Jensen has certainly been going in these final couple of races. As I think Frankie might be the next one to go on that. Currently in P11, 4-5 DNFs this season to Frankie's name, unfortunately. Will he catch his big bit of luck here? 36.4 currently his best. He's got Freddy, Krypton potentially to try and improve into that gap. Can Frankie do it? And if he does, where's he going to go?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That Frankie's another one kind of similar to Arocca, who started off the season really strong. Of course, Frankie was on pole, remember, in the first round of the season and was dominating the first half of the first race of the season before a safety car came out and he plummeted down the field in the second half of the race. That wasn't really anything to do with him. That was more, obviously, the safety car affecting his strategy massively and costing him a look at what looked like a pretty comfortable race win that day as he slaps the wall there coming out of turn 5. yeah, since then, since that first round of the season where he looked so strong, he's just not been able to find that form since then. So it's been a bit of a shame of a season for Frankie. He started off so well. Again, another snap there over the curb on the exit of turn number 7. The car's looking a little bit on edge at the moment. It was a 10th up in the first sector, but you can see he's understeering a lot. I wonder whether that slap with the wall coming out of turn 5 has maybe damaged that car in some way, because there is a lot of understeer in some of these slower corners. He looks a little bit better there. And then, oh, look at that spin. Does he keep it out of the wall? Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. He drives straight into the wall after that, but he just keep going with the damaged front wing. But yeah, too much power there. Getting on the power too early there, just after the Singapore sling and dropping the car. So yeah, a little bit of a commentator's curse while we're talking over him. He has a horrible lap. Jake Marsh is another one who's on a lap at the moment, currently down in 16th position, crosses the line and goes up to P9. So finds half a second. Good improvement for him. Goes just ahead of his Mercedes teammate.
Yeah, Steph down in 14th, by the way. 26.7, he's going to come into the hairpin at turn 14. It's looking good for Asicum at this moment in time. Harry there in second, Jerry there in third. Steph has got a big middle sector in him. 103.4. That's a lot more like it as he now comes through in towards turn 14 and then through the left-hander at 15 in towards the chicane of 16 and 17. Herman Tilke design track, of course, here in Singapore. Around about 40% actually is taken at full speed because it's so technical, this circuit. It's basically like another Monaco, just with the barriers. I would say a little bit closer to the drivers. A bit of contact there with the wall from Steph. He's looking good at this point. Jerry, by the way, is just backing onto the lap, I think, as well in front of him as he comes through the final couple of corners. Steph on the run towards the line. Goes fourth. That's more like it. 35.9. Found another 2.5 tenths in that final sector. Jerry's coming through the final sector, and he's 700 up. And oh my God, he nearly hit the wall.
That was so lucky. That was on the limit. There is something about Jerry and incredible saves at the moment, isn't there? He keeps doing it across all the races so far. But yeah, that was an incredible save from Jerry. He's trying to back off, I think, to potentially go for another run, but those tyres will be dead. He won't be improving, as I think Steph is retired on track, unfortunately. But that is his quality session over done with anyway. So yeah, now we've just got to wait to see as Jerry retires to the pit lane. We've just got to wait and see now what Asicum and Harry can do, because they seem to be the only ones, don't they, that can really challenge for this. Tom looked like he was on a good lap, a 3.3 in the middle sector. That was about a 10th up from where Steph was, but he's invalidated again as Tom on another run. So yeah, this isn't looking great. This is, I don't know. To me, it looks like this is just a straight fight between Asicum and Harry for this pole position, because they are comfortably clear of the rest of the field at the moment. As I think Harry there may have just accidentally blocked Kryptonite at the end of his run. Yeah, Kryptonite wasn't up on his time. He was a 10th down, but he was massively blocked there by Harry in the final sector, so I would not be surprised if that's a penalty coming Harry's way.
Yeah, that's a shame. I didn't see that because I was on board with Rudy. He was a 10th up in the first sector, now a 10th down in the middle sector, so Rudy losing the time through the final couple of corners on the run towards the line, gains that time back and goes third. 35.884. Good lap from him. Pedro Silva goes third. Good lap from him. He goes into third. Harry, as you say, is on a run, I believe, on the run down towards Memorial Corner. We'll see his first sector. 26.7. He's 400s down. Asicum coming through this point as well in the first sector. And it's a 26.6 and he's 200ths up. So actually Harry a little bit quicker, but it's the corners as he actually invalidated through on his lap as well. Tom is on a run. He's invalidated. A Rocker is coming through the Singapore sling. He seems to be furthest on. And Asicum, yeah, he's coming out of turn number 8. So we're going board with a Rocker. There might be other drivers on the lap as well. I think the likes of Fetty is invalidated. Daniel is coming through the final couple of corners as well. Late call-up, actually, for SXT Daniel on the run towards the line. And he goes fourth.
Wow.
35.8. Good improvement from him. 6/10, in fact, improvement from Daniel. Thomas would say he's not on a lap. A Rocker is coming through the final couple of corners. He is a 10.5 down in this middle sector. So a Rocker hopefully rocking his way potentially up the field in this point. That's a terrible pun, I know, but I couldn't think of anything else. That's a come out on top. Harry in second, Pedro Silva in third, Daniel in fourth. Where's the Rocker going to go with this lap? He looked very consistent. He's got 3,000s to find on Jensen. Surely he can find those 3,000s. Around the final corner, on the run toward the line. And he doesn't, and he invalidated actually at the final corner as well. Asicum is coming through the final couple of corners. Is he going to improve the AlphaTauri man on the run toward the line? You bet he will. 35.3 and absolutely obliterates the field early on. Asicum out on top. Harry there in second. Pedro Silva again in third. Very consistent qualifying from him. Line Varlet is 6.5 tenths up through the final couple of corners on the run to line. He's looking to feature 18th actually for Line Varlet. 37.2 as it's actually raining at the end of the qualifying session, which I've just noticed there flick on my camera. Asicum out on top. Harry there in second. Pedro Silva in third. Very good qualifying, but with rain at the end of qualifying, hopefully none is going to be had in this race, because I want to see a good race.
Yeah, I don't know if we can take a wet Singapore. That would be a bit of a strain on our mental health, I think that would be. But yeah, they're lucky the rain came right as the session finished. I don't think anybody was affected by that rain, which is nice to see. But yeah, a lot of drivers making mistakes on their final run. We had Jensen in the wall on the exit of turn 3, having made a mistake at the very start of his final run. We had Tom invalidating at the end of Raffles Boulevard at turn 7. We had, yeah, so many drivers making mistakes on their runs, and nobody other than Asacombe getting their full potential, I think, in that qualifying session. Harry obviously invalidated his final run as well, so we didn't see the best from Harry either. And Rudy was 2 tenths down on his own best time in the middle sector on his final run, so there was way more time in it for Rudy. And if he hadn't made that mistake in the middle sector, he could have potentially been on the front row. Yeah,
definitely. Asacombe out on top, nearly 3.5 tenths over Harry. Pedro Silva there in third, Daniel in fourth, Rudy in fifth, Jerry in sixth, Steph in 7th, Tom in 8th. All the main championship contenders that could really put a little bit of impetus are well down in the mid-pack, and that's going to be interesting to see. Of course, further down the field, we've got the likes of Aquila, Jake Marsh, Krypton, and Fetty outside the top 10. We're going to go for a slight intermission break, and we'll be back with you in 30 seconds. Might have accidentally clicked on the wrong thing there, but we are back live here for WOR. 30 seconds awaiting our drivers, of course, out on track. And here we go in Singapore, in what looks a very overcast Singapore, even though it's midnight here in Singapore. It is really, really dark in terms of the cloud cover over the circuit, so maybe a threat of rain. We saw it at the end of qualifying there. It was literally at the end of qualifying. Those laps have obviously been done by the drivers. 5 seconds until we go. Get your predictions in the comment section quickly. We're about to go green, of course, here in Singapore. Round 11 of the championship about to begin in WOR. The 5 red lights now coming on here in Singapore. Round 11 of the championship, and it is lights out, and away we go. Asacombe gets a very good start. Harry, I think, gets the better start, though, on the run towards turn 1, and Harry on the inside line already retakes the race lead from Asacombe there in second. He tries to get the switchback out of turn 1. There's a huge amount of contact further down the field. Pedro Silva's been spun, I think, by Tom, who got caught up in that as well. Tom's gone sprinting as well. Jensen's been collected. Aquila's been collected. Krypton been collected. Word. Honestly, what on earth is going on in the background? Smalley's got a 5-second penalty, and no surprise, we've got a VSC already. Harry leads the way. Asacombe in second. Great start from him. Rudy has picked up a penalty as well. He's got 5 seconds as well. So Rudy's obviously had a bit of contact with somebody out on track. Daniel there in fourth, Steph in fifth. Really, really good start towards the top end of the field. Down the bottom end of the field, especially with Pedro Silva getting caught up, and then Tom and Jensen going into each other. Absolute carnage here in Singapore.
Yeah, that's a problem with the street circuit, isn't it? As one person crashes, it's really difficult to get around. And with a field this big, you can get caught up in somebody else's incident just trying to avoid the other one. And yes, so many drivers at the back of the field with damage here. They're going to be, well, both Hasses currently 11th and 12th with nothing on their front wings at all. So they're going to have to pit at the end of this lap. There's a lot of damage throughout the field. So that's a real shame. And again, Pedro Silva just can't buy any luck, can he? He had such a good qualifying last time out and just had a horrible race, and this time around qualified third and was down to the back of the field before the race had really even begun, which is again such a shame. But he looks like he's gotten away with no damage potentially, so he can stay out and gain while these other people come in for their pit stops. Meanwhile, like you saw, Harry, brilliant start to this race for Harry. That has really made his one, and Asacombe now sits in second position. Rudy in third, good for track position, but that 5-second penalty, because of how early it is in the race, he is going to have to serve that at some point in this race, so he's already on the back foot.
Yeah, definitely. So my big reaction in the background was Asacombe nearly going into the wall. Off the restart, Steph is now going to get the job done on Daniel, who might have a little bit of damage potentially on that car, because he's going to swept up by Jerry as well. So Jerry's through, and he's into fifth. Jake Marsh in the pits, Tom in the pits, Frankie in the pits, a Rocker in the pits. Pedro Silva continues on. Krypton in the pits, and I think Akila's coming in as well. So 6 drivers in the pit lane at the end of lap 1. Not a great start at all from our driving standards perspective here in WOR tonight, but Harry leads the way over Asicum in second. Rudy there in third. That 5-second penalty obviously overhanging. Freddy on the outside line though, trying to get the job done on Daniel. Round the outside he goes through Memorial Court at turn number 7. Even with Daniel having damage, that is beautiful stuff from Freddy. He's doing his into 6, and now Freddy's Piga trying to get down the inside in towards turn number 7. Tries to get the job done through turn 8 and then through turn 9. Gets the switch back out of 9. Now for the inside on the Singapore Sling. Use a bit of EOS as well to good effect, and he runs down on the inside line and gets the job done into the Singapore Sling, and he's doing his into 7th.
Yeah, lovely move, and like you say, Daniel is just going to have to back out of these moves with that damage. He can't fight them. It's just there's not enough room on this track to be fighting someone with damage. He'll cause an incident if he fights too hard. It's all Fedis Piga a bit early on the throttle there, coming out of the hairpin, but gets away with it. Yeah, that's 6 drivers that pitted for damage, but we've still got Daniel who's got damage, and Smalley further down the field with a damaged front wing as well. So that's 8 drivers that picked up damage on the first lap of this race. That is a horror show of a first lap, unfortunately, for these drivers. So they're really going to have to try and hope for a safety car. So Fedis Piga almost completely understeered into the wall there in the final sector. I don't know if he's potentially got a little bit of damage on that car as well, because that was a chronic amount of understeer through that corner. What Daniel has done as well has split that top 5 away from the rest of the field. The rest of the field have all been split up as they try to get past this Red Bull, who is staying out at the moment with that damaged front wing. So yeah, he's split the field up a little bit and has left this top 5 to themselves at the front of the field. And interestingly, I thought Asicum would be all over the back of Harry here, considering how strong he was in qualifying, but that's not the case. Harry's got the gap up to 0.8 of a second, and Harry has more ERS to play with than Asicum. They're still very high, and it's only about 10% difference, but either way, you would normally expect the leader to have less than the driver behind because they're trying to pull away, but that's not the case this time around. So Harry potentially maybe sacrificing a bit of qualifying speed and has potentially got the better car and the better race pace.
Yeah, definitely so. In terms of Daniel, by the way, I don't think he actually does have any damage, or any visible damage, that's for sure. Smalley's back in the pit lane as well to obviously go on to a different compound of tyre. But yeah, Daniel is losing a lot of time. I maybe have a theory about, and it's only a theory at this point, it might be well worked if it does start in terms of the weather conditions. I wonder if he's running a wet setup potentially. If he has not got absolutely any pace here, I wonder if he's running a wet setup. And I wonder, and coming back to the point that you made about the ERS, they're obviously conserving the ERS at this early stage. I wonder if there's a threat of rain at some point in this race, because Daniel looks like, I think he might have like a full wet setup on potentially, and that's why we saw him further down the field. But then again, he qualified well up there in terms of the position, yeah. So he's there in 9th. Either he's got damage, it's front wing, or it's side pod damage, and he's just having to try and cope with it as best as he can.
I think it's more damage than anything else. I think if he was running a wet setup, then I don't think he would have started on the hards. I think this race would have, if you would have gone for a dry setup if you were starting on the hards and expecting rain, because the rain would have been the lesser factor in this race than the dry conditions. So there is definitely some sort of damage. But with him staying out, and us not visually seeing it, suggests to me that that's some sort of floor or side pod or rear wing damage that we can't see, that of course you can't get repaired. So if that is the case, this is going to be a long race for Daniel to just try and get to the end of this one and see if he can survive. We'll have to see what kind of damage it is. Maybe he'll tell us at some point after the race is finished what damage he did have. But by the looks of things, it's either very light front wing damage, but damage on this game doesn't have that much of an effect on your performance, at least front wing damage wise. It isn't as brutal as it was in the previous game, so you wouldn't be expecting to lose this much, especially with the qualifying pace that he had. So yeah, I think there's definitely some sort of side pod or floor damage on that car, because he's plummeting now, and he's being caught by Lion Violet, who, no offense to him, but by his own standards, Lion Violet would not be catching Daniel in any normal circumstance. So yeah, he's definitely going to fall out the points very soon. So it's kind of a bit of a race of attrition already. We're only 4 laps in. Pretty much everybody from 11th down. There's really only 10 drivers in this race that have got through this race scot-free so far, and that's only 4 laps in. So I fear this may be a little bit of a race of attrition already.
Yeah, definitely so. I'm looking at the comment section, by the way. Atlas is saying in the comment section he has a lot of damage. Daniel has damage. He is using a dry setup, and I think he might be race engineering here tonight as well. So if that is the case, he knows obviously better than us in the comments box, which is good, and that we prefer that insight, of course, from the comment section. Cactus, by the way, in the comment section might be getting confused with PCF1 and saying that, come on, Yano, up me. Maybe we have got our young young on Yano Opmi, maybe just masquerading as one of these guys. Maybe it's Harry out in front, 9/10 of a second. The gap was around 4 or 5/10. He's doing a good job to hold off Asakuma at this point. But obviously, the tyre wear is such a high factor around here, especially on that sort of hard compounded tyres, because you've got really one of two options on a strategy call. You can go set a medium compounded tyres, which I think will be the preferred strategy from around the halfway stage, or you can go for set of softs and then put in, final 5-6 laps of the race, and then try and make them work towards the end. We are going to get a battle further down the field as well, while I obviously talk over. Pedro Silva on the back of Lion Varlet. This is 10th and 11th, and final point scoring position at this stage, and this might be the easiest move you'll see all night. Pedro Silva slingshots out of Memorial Corner in towards turn number 7. Should get the job done in towards Memorial Corner, and he does indeed. Pedro Silva through, and he's into 10th position, making up for that spin that he had out of turn number 3. I think that contact that he had with Tom, of course, a lot of delving into the steward's room, I think, after this race. But Harry leads the way, has to come in second, Rudy in third. But what I'm shocked about, really, Steph and Jerry are actually keeping up to these guys. They've used a lot of battery at this stage, 17% for Steph, 44% for Jerry, and then you've got the top 3 basically running at around 50-60%. And Harry currently controlling the way. Steph and Jerry have got onto the back of that ERS, but now they need to conserve that ERS and obviously just latch onto the back within that DRS train.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that Steph has had to use so much ERS to try and keep up around this track. Considering the performance that we saw from him last time out, you wouldn't really expect Steph to be struggling to keep up with the train, but that seems to be the case, isn't it? He's used so much ERS, like you say, and he can't really save that much at the moment because he is using to keep up. So, yeah, struggling a little bit at the moment in this race is Steph in P4, and yeah, the second he loses DRS, even though it doesn't seem like that big of an advantage around this track, there's 3 DRS zones, and they're really the only ways you can keep in range around this track, because other than that, you're affected by the dirty air here more than pretty much any other track in the field, as Pedro Silva gets past Daniel, is now up into 9th place, so he's continuing his fight back through the field after that lap 1 spin. But yeah, like I said, this is one of those tracks more than anywhere that you're going to feel the dirty air, because it's so many corners in quick succession, and a lot of them are medium speed corners as well. So it's going to be difficult if you drop DRS to try and keep up. So yeah, Steph's going to have to pray that he stays within range, but he's teetering on the edge of derating very soon. So I fear we'll give it a couple of laps time, and I think Steph may drop off the back of this train. So yeah, maybe it might be just a case of wait and see for Steph, but I do think he's already struggling to try and keep up with this train. One person I feel sorry for at the moment is Fede, P6, having probably one of his best races on this game so far, but he is in complete no man's land at the moment. You can't keep up with the top 5, and he's pulling away from Fede Speaker in P7. So if it stays like this with no safety cars, I fear Fede may have a pretty boring race at the moment.
Yeah, he's losing around 3 or 4 tenths, I think, a lap at this stage. It was around 2.8 seconds, I think, 2 laps ago, so it's now 3.8, so you can already see about half a second, basically, he is catching. Jerry, again, really sideways, coming out through the grandstand section of 17 and 18, and Fede has actually gone off, coming through turn 18. I think he's got left side end plate damage on the car. He has indeed, so he's been in the wall, coming out of turn 17, out of PK gate. Maybe a little bit of a deja vu with the Alpine, of course, but Fede into the pit lane. I think it was a human error. Obviously, he's back into the pit lane. Left side unplate damage on the car. Such a tricky pit lane as well, coming into the pit in Singapore. But Fede into the pit lane, and just when you were saying he was in a bit of no man's land, he more than certainly is in no man's land now.
Yeah, I do love to curse people. That seems to be the thing I will take away from WOR, is that this is where I curse people a lot. I just don't give a lot of people a lot of luck. I think the spirit of Flavio Briatore entered Fede's mind there and kind of put him off and made him crash, which is a bit of a shame, because he was in such no man's land that he could have just kind of cruised and would have been fine. But either way, yeah, he is now well down the field, and that's not what you would want to see from Fede, who's struggled so much in this game. It was nice to see him further up the field for once, but yeah, it's just not going to come to fruition for them, unfortunately. But that puts now Fede Spiga into no man's land in P6. And P7 is Jensen. I am miffed by Jensen's lack of pace so far today. He wasn't really up there in qualifying. It wasn't a bad qualifying by any stretch, but it wasn't the qualifying we expect from Jensen. Jensen, this season, his whole problem has been he's been so fast but so on edge that he's either winning or he's crashing. But today, he's just kind of nowhere, really. He can't really keep up with Fede Speaker in front, and the last lap around, Pedro Silva was half a second faster. So yeah, Jensen at the moment in this race at least is fairly anonymous by Jensen standards.
Yeah, season 12 champion, unfortunately, I think looking completely... it's one of those things where I think everyone around him on the PS platform, I think of now, basically grown up a bit. They've obviously improved in terms of their pace. We see it in other leagues as well. PSGL, he's been struggling in. Certainly in SLC, when he's been there for VSR, he's been struggling there as well. There's only one league, I think, and that was, I think, in HOR, where he does race with Tom, who's down in 13th and got ahead of Frankie, by the way, on that set of soft compound of tyres. Jensen there in 7th. He has looked a shell of his former self, but I think it lies down to one thing and one thing only, and it's pretty much absolutely said across any platform, whether it's Xbox, whether it's PC, or whether it is PS. We've got a yellow flag, and that's, I think, Smalley round coming through the grandstand section. But Jensen, yeah, down in 7th. He's got a lack of pace as Frankie's retired into the pit lane. Jensen will finish this point if drivers do not want to interrupt me. That would be great. Jensen there in 7th. Basically, everybody's caught up to him, and he just doesn't have any pace anymore, I think, on this game. Last game, it was probably more his style, more his pace. This season, we've seen drivers catch up to him, and unfortunately for him, he's been left behind in the wash, and that, I think, is the real unfortunate thing. Games change over time, and obviously if this is going to be the last game under the current game engine and everything that I've heard it potentially could be, Jensen will be hoping upon hope that the sports update does something for his pace, or B, next game will be his game once again. But we know Jensen, he can come back and bounce from this. But it's just the case of, and you've seen it in esports, Lucas Blakely overtaking Jarno Opmeer. Jarno Opmeer has been caught in esports, and that really is painful to say if you're a Jarno Opmeer fan, but it's true. And games change, as well as drivers changing, and therefore younger drivers coming through have caught up to Jensen, and unfortunately for him, he's been left behind. And Smalley has retired... that's his AI coming out the pit lane, this one. Thought he retired on track, but he's not. He retired in the pit lane. But yeah, as that Dan Screen has crashed coming through 17. And that might be a safety car. It's off track. It's off track, and it's actually through turn 21.
Oh, it is a safety car. Wow, it is.
Safety car, interestingly, for Dan Screen, the Aston Martin this time, hitting the wars as Aquila has to slow down. There he is on the right-hand side, just passing Aquila actually on the right-hand side. How's he lost it there? It's a little bit of an interesting position, obviously, to crash. Tom into the pit lane, Feddy in, Aquila in. Really saves, I think, Tom and Feddy's race, potentially. But they're all into the pit lane. I can't understand how Dan Screen actually crashed there. I can only assume he's got too much on the curb and he spun the car and just over-rotated.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of as well. It is a very weird... I've just
we've got a glitch. We've got a glitch.
Yeah, I just saw Kryptonite, going into his pit box and then spawning back out on the racetrack, which was very weird, but he's back in the pit lane. So, yeah, it's just a visual glitch, so hopefully that's not anything that's actually affecting the drivers. I think it's just something visual on our end. But, yeah, that was... very weird spot for Dan Screen to crash. Like you say, that corner's more about just kind of setting yourself up for the second part of the chicane more than anything else. And that curb, you don't really ride that curb. You just kind of glance below it and then go past it. It's not really something you think about too much. You're more worried about the second part of that chicane than anything else. So it's a very odd position to crash in. And yeah, just to tack onto your point, what you're saying about Jensen and how this game hasn't really suited him. He's been fine pace-wise. His pace has been strong in this game. It's just these cars, especially before the performance update we had in the first couple of weeks of this game, but even after it, we had a huge shift in how these cars perform. Obviously, with the new physics and the new tires, these cars are a lot more on edge than they were in previous games. Previous games, you had obviously more downforce and we had more lateral grip from the tires as well because they were thicker and it was a 13-inch wheel rather than an 18-inch wheel. With the changes that these cars have had and in the physics engine, it's just made these cars more on edge. And I think that's not something that really particularly suits Jensen, because I think he preferred to drive a stable car and have something that he could then put a setup in that made it edgy and made him fast. But because this car's already edgy, I think his edgy setups aren't working or aren't suiting the car and aren't suiting him, which is why we're seeing him struggle so much at the moment to keep the car on the road. So yeah, hopefully for his sake, he'll find something that can suit him a little bit better and he'll be back at the front. But yeah, it's definitely a bit of a shift as Steph has crashed under the safety car. That's weird. He's turn 8. He's gone into turn 8 and he's just outbroke himself and hit the wall and has fallen behind Jerry and Fedespiga. And surely there's probably some damage on that front wing. That is, if he does have to pit for a front wing change, that is one of the most bizarre and silly errors I've seen in a long time. That was utterly random, and on turn 8 of all places, you wouldn't expect that under the safety car at all. Like, not even in race conditions would you really expect that, but under the safety car, that is a bizarre mistake to make.
Yeah, maybe he's been getting a little bit too... Was he actually weaving underneath the safety car just before turn 8?
If he was, that's a weird position to be weaving under the safety car, because there's not really much of a gap in distance between turn 7 and turn 8. So I don't understand why you would be doing that, and whether he's tried to warm the rear tyres up and has lit the rear tyres up and has just gone straight into the wall, I'm not sure. But either way, that is a silly place to do it, and yeah, that is if he's got away with no damage, then he's very lucky. He's very lucky to get away with that with no damage if that is the case. But if he pits now, that is obviously going to be a front wing change for Steph, so that could drop him further down. That will drop him behind the 2 Ferraris at least if he does have to pit. So we'll see what he does. He's keeping to the left-hand side. Is he coming into the pit lane? Yes, he is. So he did pick up some damage. So yeah, that's a silly error from Steph, because it was after a pit stop for Rudy that put him into P3 and gave him the opportunity to resave his ERS that he'd burnt in the first half of the race. So yeah, that is a silly error from Steph, and he's going to drop a lot further down the field. One thing that this does do, of course, for those that had pitted early on in this race for damage off of the hards and onto the medium compound tyres, they can theoretically pit back onto the same set of hards and go to the end, because the hards have only done, well, really half a lap at full race distance. They did the rest of the lap under virtual safety car speed, and then they took them off. So they've not really got a lot of wear on them. So the people like Jake Marsh and Tom and Aquila and a Kryptonite and a Rocker, technically they can go to the end of the race. The top 5 still have to pit, and there is not a chance in hell that those that are on the medium compound tyres right now are doing 20 laps on the mediums around Singapore. So yeah, this is a great opportunity for those that were involved in that massive pile-up at the start of the race to bring themselves properly back into play. And if the field doesn't spread out that much and they can keep within a good range of our net race leaders, then they've got a great opportunity of still stealing a great result from this.
Yeah, definitely. So, especially so, I think in the likes of Jake Marsh, as you say, down in 9th position, he was immediately the one I was looking at in the on the commentary there. As Jake Marsh is in 9th position, he's on that sort of whole compound tyres. He will easily get to the end of the race. Now, I obviously saw, I think it was on the last game or on F1 2020, I saw somebody who I'm going to remain anonymous, because he's not alongside me in the commentary box at all, but which he isn't. So, it's NSX Unseen. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him. He did 30 laps around here in Singapore on a set of hard compound tyres and won the race. So it can be done. It can be done. But that is, of course, on a former game. That is just a fun fact that I've had for everyone to just bore yourselves to death with, I think. Harry out on top, Asa coming second, Cherry there in third. Only on lap 11. I think we've been commentating this race for at least an hour, I think, at this point. It certainly feels that way here in Singapore. But the safety car is going to be coming in next lap, as a Rocker is still coming down the Instant Bridge, coming in towards turn 14. So Harry coming to the final couple of corners, leading the way. Asa coming second, Jerry in third, Fedder's peaking fourth. What was really key to see, actually, both Ferraris actually double stacked underneath that safety, the safety car coming out. Rudy was the first one in. He managed to serve up his 5-second penalty. Jensen got held up but didn't actually lose a place. So Jensen is rather fortunate that he didn't, because he would have been behind the likes of Lime Violet, Jake Bosch, Daniel, Steph, and the likes if Rudy held them up probably at least 2-3 seconds further. So Jensen very fortunate in that fact in 7th, and he's got his old friend and rival in Rudy ahead of him. And if those 2 Ferraris can work together, normally they're magic out on track in terms of the team's championship. So the Ferraris would be looking to try and gain many positions off the start. Not only adding to that, they're on a fresh set of mediums.
Yeah, fresh set of mediums, but they're only conundrum now, so they've got to decide what they want to do for this race. Are they going to sit and conserve those medium compound tyres and try and get them to the end, or are they going to push like crazy and pit when our top 5 have to pit as well? So they're going to have to make their mind up as to what they want to do. I think if you're Rudy, you're not in any championship fight, you're not featuring in any sort of championship position anyway, go for it. I would push as hard as you can on these medium compound tyres, try and get through the 5 drivers in front of you, who are obviously going to be slower. The tyre delta around this track between an old set of tyres and a fresh set of tyres is massive because of how many corners there are and the tyre temperatures. So if Rudy can get through these 5 drivers in front of him and get to the lead of this race, he can pit again with about 8, 7 laps to go onto a set of softs and be incredibly fast at the end of the race and come back at those who are staying out on the hards. So yeah, I think that's what the strategies are going to be for the two Ferraris. If they can do it is another question, because of course it is so difficult to overtake at this track. But if Rudy can get fired off well on the safety car restart and immediately get past Pedro Silva, Rudy's in a great position to try and fight to the front and would still win this race.
Yeah, definitely so. Safety car in this lap. Harry now the virtual Marlander. He's now the virtual safety car. We've been waiting a while for the safety cars to come in around this track, as it goes very slow through this final sector, so Harry's got to be on his A game, and that's a come. Has got to be on his A game there as well. He's there in second, obviously in the AlphaTauri, wanting to try and get on with things. Harry's setting, I've got to say, very consistent pace on the safety car, and that is what we like to see. Very consistent safety car restarts, unlike Steph, of course, last week in Abu Dhabi, who had 3 safety car restarts in the sprint and feature race, and probably messed them all up, as Harry actually says go, coming through the final couple of corners. In fact, he now puts the brakes on, and now backs everyone up once again, and now he says go, coming through the left-hander of turns 22 and 23, and Harry's not got a great start at all, and Asacom is right on the back of him, trying to get a little bit of heat into the tires, actually the leader, as Harry leads the way. Asacom in second, Jerry in third, Rudy is already through, and Pedro Silva down in towards turn 1, Jensen's going to follow through as well, to the inside line through turn number 3, beautiful stuff from the Ferraris, that's what they can do, with Jake Marshall spun in the background, Rudy through, and he's into 5th, Jensen there into 6th, and Asacom is right on the back of Harry, running down Raffles Boulevard for the 13th time. Harry leads the way, Asacom in second, Jerry in third line, Varland I think has hit the wall and spun in the background, but Harry leads, Jerry's right on the back of Asacom, he tries to lunge his teammate down in the inside line, through Memorial Corner, doesn't get the job done, we stay as we are, it's Harry leading the way, Asacom in second, Jerry in third. What happened to line Varland?
He just dropped the car out of turn 5, so just put power on a little bit too early, trying to get to the back of Pedro Silva and drop the car, which is a bit of a shame. So he's now down to the back of the field. But yeah, the Ferrari's doing what they need to do. Look at Rudy trying to get a run into the Singapore sling, but just not close enough to the back of Federspiga to get the move done into turn 10. So he'll stay behind for the time being. But will he try and move into the hairpin here? I don't think he's really close enough. He has a look, I think, just trying to get Federspiga offline, which he does. But Rudy, by taking such a sharp line through the hairpin, is going to compromise his run out. So he's not going to be close enough on the run down towards turn number 14. But he managed to get through on Pedro Silva. Can he get past these drivers in front now? Harry went far too early at the safety car restart. He'd come out of turn 21 and the safety car wasn't in the pit lane entry yet, so he had to slow down. Otherwise the game would have forced him to slow down itself, which is why he had such a bad restart. So yeah, he just didn't obviously slow down enough when the safety car was called in. And like you say, the safety car runs so slow around here, you've got to be wary of that. And he just went far too early, even for the game's liking. So that's why the safety car was so poor, but it's not hurt him too much for the time being. But look at Rudy up the back of Federspiga here into the final 2 corners. Can he get the run down towards turn 1? I think he can. Surely this is going to be an easy move. But Federspiga is going to block the inside line. Rudy's going to try and go round the outside, the long way round in towards turn number 2. And Federspiga bounces off the curb and into the side. And Federspiga's going to spin after that contact as well. So I think Rudy will get away with no illegal overtake on that one because of the spin for Federspiga, but that was always going to happen. I think Federspiga kind of had to back out of that.
Oh, Steph running around the outside of turn number 5 on Pedro Silva. Beautiful stuff from Steph. That was forceful, but I like it. Steph through, and he's into 7th. And now going side by side in the background on the rear wing of the Alpine is Tom on the inside of Pedro Silva in toward Memorial Corner. He gets the job done. Those set of hards really not liking the GTZ man. Steph through and he's into 7, Tom into 8, and as bad as many corners you can probably count on your fingers. Harry leads the way, Asacom in 2nd, Jerry there in 3rd, Rudy all over the back of Jerry. Yeah, I've got to tend to agree with you, I think, on from Federspiga's perspective. He actually came across quite violently, I've got to say, moving across on line on Rudy, so that might get looked into. But Rudy got away with that. I think he was going to get the job done anyways. It's just basically Verstappen and the likes 2017, when of course it was wet conditions. I kind of liken that to that incident. Of course, we all knew what happened there, and Jerry's just gone way too deep in towards 714. Rudy says thank you very much on his Telempacking teammate. He is through, leads into P3, and do you know what? Jensen might follow through very soon indeed as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Jensen's just waiting for Rudy to make the move so that they can get caught offline and Jensen can just re-attack. Another one to look out for is Steph and Daniel, of course. They're now back into this fight as well after Daniel's horrible opening lap and Steph's mistake under the safety car. They're right back into this fight as well now in 6th and 7th. So we've got to keep our eye on them as Harry's in. That is bizarre. That is a really bizarre. Yeah, I don't know if he's got damage. Does he have damage? But that is such a bizarre call to be coming in at this point in the race. Why not just come in under the safety car if you were going to do this? Because you're going to lose so much track position by staying out. I mean, he's in last. He's gone from first to last by pitting here. And what this does as well is open the door for Rudy to just have an easy run at Asacombe down Raffles Boulevard. Surely he should get the move done. But Asacombe's car's pretty good in a straight line, as Rudy's going to have to go the long way around into turn number 7. Asacombe, is he going to leave him the space on the outside? Not really. Rudy's going to run off the track. That's going to be an illegal overtake, I think, by the game. But he's going to keep the position anyway by the looks of things. And Rudy will take the lead of this race. Asacombe's going to try and fight back, but there's not quite the gap there to make that move stick. So, as I think Dan Spreen, sorry, has left the session, that's further down, never mind. As, yeah, Rudy then into lead of the race, and yeah, I'm completely baffled by that call from Harry. Surely, if you're Harry, with the race that's going on right now, you wait, if you're going to go for the mediums, you've got to wait another...
Steph down the inside of Daniel. Sorry to cut you off, Aiden. That was an absolute dive bomb from Steph. He is going to get the job done. Throoney's into 5th. Again, a very forceful move there from Steph. And now Tom is going to join in the fray as well. And he's going to get his elbows out and towards 10-14. And there's contact on the inside line. Tom knows better than that. Daniel defended the line. He was always going to hold the position, I think, there. Rudy now leads, as you say. Asacombe in 2nd, Jensen 3rd. Sorry to cut across you. Just saw an absolute dive bomb in Alpine in the background.
Yeah, that was wild, wasn't it? I wonder if... I don't think Daniel's going to be too happy with that. He did kind of get shoved out of the way, but then Daniel returned the favour on the wrong driver at the next corner with Tom. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting one. It's a yellow flag further down the field. Yeah, Line Violet's had a moment, so that's a bit of a shame, unfortunately, as Rocker's had a moment as well by the looks of things in the hat. Jerry's... I'm baffled by these calls. This doesn't make any sense. If you're going to go for the medium compound tyres from here, you've got to stay out another 3 or 4 laps, because these mediums still aren't going to be fast by the end of the race, and they're not going to be fast enough to be able to close in fully on the hard runners at the front like we've got with Tom and Aquila potentially. And then if you're Rudy's just going to continue to extend at the front as Jensen gets the move on Asacombe now as well. Rudy's not going to have that much pace difference between himself and Harry, and he'll just pit for a fresh set of softs and go even faster at the end of the race and just re-overtake them. So I am really baffled by this call. If you're going to pit now 3 laps under the safety car, 3 laps after the safety cars come in, you may as well have just pitted under the safety car, because that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I've seen some weird strategy calls in my time as a commentator. 10 years I've, by the way, have been doing commentary on Formula 1 games. If nobody knew that, I've even been checking up my own tally of how many commentaries I've done, I think, over that 10-year period. But yeah, in my 10 years of league racing commentary, I don't think I've seen such a strange call as that. Unless they think these guys on the set of mediums, Rudy Jensen, Steph and Daniel, will not get to the end of the race. Unless, maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, maybe there's a sense of rain, but I wouldn't think it would be that. I think they're thinking all of the hard runners are probably going to pit in towards the end of the race. Tom and Aquila don't. Neither does Krypton, neither does Jake Bosch. They can all continue on. Harry and Jerry are on the back of the line Violet, for goodness sake. He's 9 seconds behind. He's got absolutely nowhere to be going at this stage. Steph, I think, is going to get the job done on Asacombe, maybe in towards turn 1. The Alpine now will pull to the inside line on the AlphaTauri. But he has a half look, but doesn't actually go for the move. Asacombe stays in 3rd, Steph there in 4th. But I'm absolutely flummoxed, baffled, confuzzled. Any word you can use as to that strategy call. Answers on a postcard, please. Rudy and the Ferraris 1-2, Rudy and Jensen currently, but now Steph has got to make it. Certainly a VSR 2-3 as Steph to the inside on of Asacombe, absolutely waltzes past, and Asacombe, of course, has still got to come into the pit lane. So the safety car of this race, the safety car really has changed the complexion of this race. Rudy now leading Jensen 2nd, Steph in 3rd. Either we are being absolutely stupid as commentators and thinking, what on earth are they doing in terms of their strategies, or these guys, Rudy Jensen and the likes, are not going to get to the end of the race, and I'm beginning to think that might just be the case.
Yeah, I don't think the likes of Rudy Jensen, Steph and Daniel will get to the end of the race. Of course, Tom, Aquila and Kryptonite and Jake Marsh definitely will on their tyres. They will get to the end of the race, but they've still got a comfortable gap at the moment over the likes of Harry and Jerry and all that. And of course, with the times that they've pitted with Jerry and Harry, I mean, we may be talking terrible nonsense at the moment. They may prove us wrong, but the likes of Harry and Jerry are doing more than half the race distance on a set of medium compound tyres. And that's with a safety car in there for the hards earlier on in the race. So these medium tyres by the end of the race for the likes of Harry and Jerry are not going to be fast. They are not going to be a fast compounder tyre when they've got 16 laps on them. And if Rudy and Jensen are pitting again, I don't blame them. They'll be very, very fast, and they'll have more of a chance, in my opinion, of catching the hard runners than the likes of Harry and Jerry do. I mean, we just saw Harry pick up the fastest lap of the race last time around with a 39.9. On that same lap, Rudy was only 4/10 slower. That is nowhere near enough of a time difference between the two laps to warrant this pit stop at this point in the race for Harry, for the likes of Harry. If that was me, it doesn't warrant really why they've stayed out such a short time after the safety car. Harry crosses the line, goes a little bit faster, but again, that's only half a second faster than Rudy. It's not a massive time difference. Jerry's lap is a little bit faster, but he's now 4 seconds behind Harry because he came in a lap later. So yeah, I am completely baffled by the strategy call. It could work out beautifully in their favor, but the problem for them as well is that if the top 4 do come in again off of these medium compound tires, Harry and Jerry and all that will be the first people to catch these hard runners, and then they've got to pass them, and we already know it's difficult to pass here. They're going to get held up. So yeah, I'm completely baffled by this score. They even need to stay out another 5 or 6 laps longer and go for the softs when the medium runners were going to go for the softs again, or they should have pitted under the safety car.
Yeah, definitely. So we saw Daniel, by the way, go through and Asa come down the straight in towards Memorial Corner. He is through now, and he's into P4. Asa come now down into P5, and he's got Tom and the likes. Potentially, they are going to be battling for a net lead. And I mean, Aquila is in 7th position, and he, if those medium runners, who we are convincing are going to have to pit in again, those hard runners can stay up to the end of the race. Aquila could potentially land himself in a net P2 as long as there's no safety cars or VSCs. We might be just making it up as we go along. We normally tend to make it up as we go along, to be honest, here in commentary. It's lap 19 out of 31 here in WOR. Rudy leads the way, Jensen in 2nd, Steph in 3rd, Daniel there in 4th. I'm trying to have a look at the comment section as well to see if you guys are actually saying about anything that we are going on about. Let me get the stream up in just a second. Corner was saying in the chat Steffi was making moves, and yeah, the crying face, I think, might be in terms of his aggressive style of overtaking, let's just say, in terms of the racing. Tom now trying to get on the back. It's now strung out like a washing line, I think, in the field. Tom trying to catch Asacom, and Tom obviously wants to try and get this job done. He's only on 7 lap fresher tyres, 7 lap younger tyres than Asacom at the stage. So really, Tom, there's a real threat that the hard runners potentially can't get to the end of the race either. This makes for fascinating viewing, makes for fascinating commentary, because we don't even know what we're talking about at this stage.
No, at this stage, we haven't got a clue. We don't know. Obviously, there's a reason we're in the commentary booth and not racing, because we don't really know what we're talking about. But it kind of depends now on how well these medium compound tyres hold up. I think, based on previous knowledge of Singapore and what we've seen across this game cycle, there is pace fall off in these tyres. The hard tyres maybe not as much because they are such a hard compounded tyre that the races aren't long enough for there really to be a pace fall off in the hards. But mediums and softs, definitely, there will be a pace fall off in them at some point in the tyre life. When that is, we're not sure, but there's a long way to go in this race. And the problem as well here is that if there is ample opportunity for Harry and all that to win this race, Harry's really the only one in the pound seat to do this, because Jerry is another 3.5 seconds back. Fedez Piga's now 8 seconds behind with a time penalty and completely out of this, and Pedro Silva's another 7.5 seconds back from that. So Harry's really the only one, in my opinion, if they're going to do this strategy, if this strategy works, it looks like he's the only one that can make this strategy work. And he's got a lot of drivers now to get through. He has got 7 hard runners in front of him he's got to try and pass. So he's going to have 6 hard runners and 1 medium runner in line violet that he's got to try and pass now. So yeah, Harry really the only one, I think, that could make this. As we've now got a crash, that is going to change everything. If that's going to be a safety car, and it is, that changes everything. And what that does do is put the likes of Harry and all that even further on the back foot, because that is a free pit stop for our top 4.
Exit of turn number 3, that is for Jake Marsh. Coming out of turn number 3, he's obviously snapped the car on the outside curb, gone spinning, maybe one way, maybe the other. So Jake Marsh in the wall. And wherever there is a safety car, there is always, for sad reasons, Jake Marsh, unfortunately. And I think what we were going on about with Harry, Jerry and Fedez Piga, they need not worry now about what the drivers ahead do underneath this safety car. They just have to now think, are they going to be ahead if those guys come in the pit lane? And this is what's going to be the defining factor, that is for sure, in this race. It's the Ferrari 1-2, Tifosi fans rejoice. Rudy and Jensen currently leading the way, Steph there in 3rd, with Daniel in 4th, Asacom, Tom, Aquila, Krypton, Freddy, Lonvola top 10, before Harry was catching on Vollett, when Vollett was actually catching Feddy as well, so that has worked out quite well, actually, for Harry in behind. Harry in 11th, as we say, Jerry in 12th, Fedders, Piga, Petro, and a Rocker when he does pass, of course, the stricken Jake March, which is roundabout now. He's there down in 15th position. I'm on board with Rudy, coming through the final couple of corners. He stays out. Jensen stays out. As does Steph. As should Daniel, you would imagine. And yes, he's in. Asacum is into the pit lane. Tom is into the pit lane. All on the sort of hard compounded tyres. Aquila into the pit lane. Krypton stays out, which I think is probably the right strategy call from my perspective anyways. Krypton there in 5th now. As Feddy is in. Alon Vollett is in. Harry, of course, will stay out. Jerry, of course, will stay out. But interesting strategy calls. Tom especially into the pit lane. That means now the top 5 are Rudy, Jensen, Steph, Daniel, Krypton, and those guys in the sort of medium compounded size, them staying out is the indication to us that they are confident those tyres can get to the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still on the fence about this one. Asacom, of course, had to pit. He was the only one in the field that hadn't made a pit stop yet, so Asacom had to pit in this race, of course, so that's not a surprise to see him in. And I don't think it's a surprise to see Tom and Aquila in either. They're on old, hard compound tyres. They're just going to be sitting ducks. People on fresher tyres behind, they may as well pit. But I'm not sure about this top 4. I think, obviously, the fact that we'll have... It's 11 laps now. It'll be 10 laps to go when we cross the line. It'll probably be 9, potentially 8 laps to go when we restart this race because of how far back a Rocker is. He's going to take a while to catch the safety car. So it could be about 9 or 8 laps to go when we get going again. I'm not sure. I don't understand why at least one of these top 4 have not come in for a set of softs, in my opinion. I think, yes, there is a little bit long left in this race and the softs won't be at their best at the end. But the softs will have such a pace advantage over old mediums at the start of this race that they could just carve through these drivers incredibly quickly and then save the tyres for the last part of this race. So I am a little bit surprised that not one of these top 4 have decided to pit. I think I would have looked to someone like Rudy or Daniel to come in for a second time. Daniel, of course, being his first time in this league, not really fighting for anything. Why not take the risk? And then, of course, you've got Rudy, who's, again, not really fighting for anything. He's a reserve driver. Why not come in and do what he did in the first round of pit stops, where he was the one to pull the jug at the front of the field and gamble and go for a pit stop? Why not do that again? I'm a little bit confused. I am a little bit confused by this call. And I think the worry now, especially for our top 4, 11 lap old medium compound tyres are not great. They're not a great compounder tyres. Harry and Jerry's are better, but they're still not great. Asacom surely is going to have a huge pace difference by the end of this race over our lead drivers. So yeah, I'm not personally sold on this strategy call for our top 4 to stay out, and definitely not Kryptonite to stay out either. I think Kryptonite here has kind of shot himself in the foot. I think he's just going to plummet down the order as this race restarts. Yeah,
potentially Krypton could hold up the likes of Harry, Jerry, and then bring Asacom and Tom potentially into play. That might be the play there for the Mercedes man in 5th. Rudy, though, does lead the way. Jensen in 2nd, Steph in 3rd, Daniel in 4th, Krypton there in 5th. We are under safety car conditions, which I think is going to be staying out at least another lap, maybe even 2 laps longer, because a Rocket is on the other side of the track coming into the grandstand at this stage, and these guys are coming through turn number 7 at this point. Jake Marsh saying in the chat as well, I got damage on the safety car restart, was pushing really hard to try and keep up without pitting, and I guess I pushed too much. So unfortunately for Jake Marsh, he got he got damage on the safety car restart, which I was going to say we didn't see from our perspective, so I'm not sure where he might have done that potentially out on track. But Jake Marsh, of course, out of the race, and that big snap of oversteer, we assume, coming out of turn number 3, cost them a chance of potential good points in this race. But now, as I say, what happens now? We've got 10 laps to go, probably 9 when the safety car comes back into the pit lane. Rudy and Jensen currently in a Ferrari 1-2. I really have the sense of feeling that the likes of Harry, the likes of Jerry, they're not going to make positions easy around this track in Singapore. I mean, I would even argue on a set of soft compounder tyres, if one of those guys was on a set of softs, I think it would be extremely difficult to get around. As the safety car is in this lap, who made that call? Michael Massey, are you controlling the race directorship? There's a car 30 seconds down, for goodness sake. A Rocker, bless him, is going to retire and probably come in the pit lane now. Rudy, anyways, is the virtual Burt Molander. He's the virtual safety car, and he's already wanted to try and get on with things. Jensen the same, and the Ferraris want to try and get on with things here. But what on earth happens now? 10 laps to go, 9 laps, of course, after this one. What on earth happens now? The answers, of course, to your questions and to our questions as well, that is for sure, is going to be coming in very good time as Rudy comes out through turns 21 and then in toward the double left at turns 22 and 23. Much better restart, I think, at this point from Rudy. Is he going to try and throttle it through the final couple of corners? No, as Asakuma's actually passed Jerry in the background. Rudy, a little bit of a shaky safety car restart, I've got to be honest with you, back on the way, back to green flag racing, and look, he's being called up. Krypton is going to be absolutely swamped by the field, and there's contact between Harry and Asakuma, I think that was. Asakuma off the track, nearly into the wall, coming down to turn number 2. He sticks out the way of absolutely everyone. Krypton's in the wall.
Carnage.
Absolute carnage off the start. Tom has picked up damage, I think, as well. Harry was involved in an instant. Rudy leads the way. Jensen in second, Stefan third. If you're one of the top 4, well done. You've kept out the way. Everything else further down the field, absolute carnage. Fedis Piga, by the way, on the solid soft compounded tyres, already soon he's into 10. Absolute carnage off the safety car restart, and Aquila has just gone absolutely barreling down the escape road in towards turn 7.
Yeah, that was messy. That was a really, really messy restart. That was contact between Harry and Jerry on the run down towards turn number 1. I don't know who was at fault there. I think Harry may have just moved across in front of Jerry down the pit straight and has almost spun himself off the front. And then at turn 3, Jerry's just outbroke himself and just completely spun. I don't know who it was actually who he spun.
They were trying to avoid Krypton. Krypton was slow coming out the final corner as Harry tries to go down the inside of Tom now into the hairpin. They were trying to avoid Krypton, and all of that has had a huge knock-on effect in behind. And Fedis Piga now on the back of Feddy. Feddy against Feddy, round the outside of double. Brilliant stuff from Fedis Piga. Oh, that was absolutely insane.
Wow.
Tom, I think, has got damage. That is one of the best moves I think I've ever seen in league racing commentary. Fedis Piga, 2 for 1. Absolute impossibility. Not impossible when you're on a set of softs. Fedis Piga through and he's into 7. Tom was backing off into the corner. Backed Feddy into a pocket. Fedis Piga all the way around the outside. And now he's chasing down Harry for 6. That is absolute world-class stuff.
Yeah, that is brilliant. That was brilliant racecraft, and that was it was so smart to be attentive of what was going on there and be able to make that move as Tom sped into the pit lane. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a retirement, and it is. It's now Fedis Piga on the back of Harry, who I think is struggling with a bit of damage. We've got another safety car here. I'm not sure what that's for because Tom has retired in the pit lane. So unless someone else has just got damage and that's just triggered like a lot of there being a lot of
Pedro
debris
Silva,
on the
no
track,
front
and
wing.
that's there we go then. So Pedro Silva, no front wing. That's why. So that's obviously that's what's been triggered. This is messy, isn't it? The safety car restarts have been very messy. The race start was very messy today as well. And now another opportunity for people to pit. Who now pits in this race for a set of softs? Because the softs will easily get to the end of the race from here. Who decides to pit again and who stays out? That is the question, because it's hard to tell. You don't want to put yourself in the pack because look at poor Asako, who had been having a solid race and had pitted only for the first time at the previous safety car, just got caught up in the melee that his teammate and other drivers around him were having, and he ended up picking up damage from that, and he's now down at the back of the field out of the points at the moment. So what does everybody else do? I don't really know. I don't know if Arocco is on your screen as well, but Arocco is driving at 11 miles an hour through the final corner. I don't know what on earth is going on with Arocco tonight. So not a clue what is going on with Arocco at the moment, but he is almost at a dead stop at the final corner. So yeah, not quite sure what's going on there. What do the two Ferraris do? Because one of the Ferraris has got to stay out, surely, because if Jensen follows Rudy in, then Jensen's going to plummet down the order here with a double stack. So if Rudy comes in, Jensen, I think, has to stay out. Likewise, if Rudy stays out, Jensen, I think, has got to take the opportunity to come in. We'll see what they do. Rudy in the lead of the race is staying out. They're both staying out. Wow, interesting. Daniel stays out as well, and Jerry's in. I'm not surprised that Jerry's into the pit lane. Jerry in. And again, Jerry with fresher mediums than the 4 drivers in front of him is the one to react to the safety car. He's the one that comes in. Harry stays out. Fedis Piga, of course, on the softs, he stays out as well, as does Fede. But Jerry's in, line violence, and I would not be surprised if everybody else now is into the pit lane, and they are. So Jerry's not really lost a lot from this. If I were one of the top 4, again, I would take the opportunity to come in for a fresh set of softs. And again, they've not done it. So,
wait,
yeah,
what? Arocco's now leading the race, apparently. What on earth is going on? Anyways, Jerry...
I'm very confused, yeah.
Yeah, Jerry, I think, coming back to that point, I think Jerry's actually made the wrong call here. He's going to be caught in a real backwash of cars. And it's so difficult to overtake around this track. Jerry now, 9th position. Aroka, I think, had to stick to delta time, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had to stick to delta time. He sped up after the start-finish line, but it was a good 15, maybe even 20, 30 seconds that he stayed pretty much at 11 miles an hour. Aroka now back going again. He should be a lap down, but in actual fact, he's now leading the race. So Aroka, what has just happened there is I think Aroka potentially has just exploited another glitch in this absolute diabolical game.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think he's desynced for me because he's on the lead of the race for your side of things and he's ahead of the safety car. For me, he's 5th in the safety car queue and 1 minute and 13 down behind Daniel. So there is obviously some sort of desync going on here for Aroka, which I am not surprised. It's a Codemasters game at this point. You just have to expect it at this point with the amount of problems these games have. But yeah, on your side of things, it seems that he's just passed the safety car and is leading.
He was a lap down. He didn't pass the safety car until, on my end anyways, he was... I do not know what is going on. It just highlights, I think, the importance of this game and the need to update it constantly because, let's just face it, the game is broke. And I'll be absolutely honest, I mean, I went on a 20-minute rant on the Shazoo Racing Championship channel. Now it fixes itself. He's there in 14th now, and he's a minute behind. It now fixes itself. This is absolutely remarkable. I mean, talking about glitches as well. Now it's desynced again. What on earth is going on? He's now 39 seconds clear of Rudy, apparently, and still pulling away, even though he's under a safety car. Aroka leads the way, Rudy in second, Jensen in third. I honestly, with this game, with the infuriating commentaries that I've had over the last few weeks, I'm on the brink of just calling it a day, I think, at this point, because a game like this, with Aroka, he's 44 seconds clear, he's exploited a big glitch in the game. Otherwise, I hope the timing screens fix themselves and we're just going on a 2-minute tirade in terms of this. But Aroka now leads the way. Rudy should be leading, Jensen second, Stefan third. At least it's only happened to one driver. But remember, we had the pit lane glitch and drivers with a visual. Aroka was one of those drivers earlier on. So I wonder if that pit lane glitch, lap 9 I think it was, might have caused a desync potentially in the lobby. And if that's the case, we're going to have a look through. As Line Violet has picked up a drive-through penalty for falling too far back, as has Fedez Piga, I think, if I am not mistaken. No, he's got 3 seconds. So Line Violet, even though he was within 10 car lengths of Jerry was in 10 car lengths of Fetty, has just picked up a drive-through penalty for falling too back, and for what? I haven't got a clue. You just have to laugh. I just have to laugh because your end of the thing is Aroka's leading by like a minute at this point and is past the safety car is doing his... The safety car's in this lap. Aroka for me is 5th and genuinely 5th, but I can't tell if he's in control of his car or not. It looks like he's not. So I am, utterly perplexed. And every update that comes out with this game, something breaks. Every time they try and fix something, they break something else. And all these glitches we've seen from 4 or 5 years ago that haven't been a feature for the past couple of games just rear their ugly head again. And I don't get it. I don't understand how Codemasters now it's fixed itself again.
Yeah, I don't know how Codemasters have these problems for years, fix them, and then break them again for the very next game. It completely perplexes me, and there needs to be some sort of massive reshuffle in Codemasters internally, because these games at this point are just getting worse and worse build quality wise.
Yeah, and there's a yellow flag in Sector 3, and that is for everyone slowing down the safety car, I think.
It's for Aroka for me coming into the pit lane, I think, because you just can't see Aroka on your end as we're underway again.
Oh no, he's left the session. There we go. Rudy now across the line to restart to lap 27 out of 31. Jensen in second, and already Harry having to defend off Fedez Piga, who goes all the way around the outside, picks up a 3-second penalty, but that is a beautiful move again from Fedez Piga. He loves those outside moves. He's through, and he's into 5th. Jerry and Feddy need to make contact as well, now down 3 wide in towards turn number 5, and Jerry is through and he's into 7th, cascading his way through the field. He's now got Jerry though, Harry on the outside line of him as Jerry now took the inside line. Here comes Feddy, slingshotting off the back of the Red Bull, tries to go to the inside line, into the Memorial corner, tries to get the job done, and he forces Harry off track slightly on the outside line. Harry's back down the inside line. That was a nutter send, and do you know what? There was no contact there. Harry's doing his into 7th. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Fair play for the pair of them. But Jerry picking off drivers very quickly. He's already onto the back of Fedez Piga. Look at the pace that Jerry's got. on this restart. As further down, Pedro Silva, his Line Violet's off the road.
damage.
Pedro Silva's getting the move done. Yeah, damage for Line Violet, and obviously with that, as Daniel and Feda's Speaker. Feda's gets the move done. Yeah, Daniel, I think, almost had to drive into the wall to avoid a collision there, and Joey's going to get the pair of them now down this back straight. It's already past Daniel's going to round the outside of Feda's Speaker, and Feda's Speaker's into him, and Feda's Speaker's in the wall, and he is out of the race. That was 1 cent too many there for Feda's Speaker. Oh, and a big crash after that as well. Fede's out of the race. That's with Kryptonite as well. The first half of this race, apart from the first lap, the first half of this race was looking okay, and the second half of this race has just been utterly diabolical from these guys.
Yeah, definitely. So driving standards, I think, put to shame, I think, here in Singapore. As I said at the start of the stream, devil's advocate, and it's just rearing its head once again. Now what do the drivers do? Do they come in? No. Rudy and Jensen stay out. Steph stays out. Daniel stays out. Right call for me, but they've got Jerry in 5th position on a set of soft compounded tyres. I said he had a real wall of cars to try and get past. He's got past half of them, and he's there in 5th, and he's only got the guys ahead of him pretty much in his back pocket, I would think. Jerry is looking confident, I think, in this race, even with 4 laps to go. Arocco, by the way, is completely desync, unfortunately, on my end, so you are getting 2 different races for 2 different prices of this game, I think, at this point. Rudy leads the way, Jensen in 2nd, Steph in 3rd, Daniel in 4th. Outplayed Racing, I think, put it absolutely brilliantly. It's all okay. They fixed Mika Hakkinen Jubilation in the classic mode, in the My Team mode that is there. And yeah, they have fixed that. They brought in the griddy, and yet it breaks the game and causes, I don't know, so many glitches, so many desyncs as well. I swear to God, if Arocco goes first once again, there might not be an end to this race on my end, because I might just throw this controller at this laptop and get rid of this game at this point, because it really highlights, I think, the need for community-led development, community-led integration in the games, because you pay content creators, the likes of Alva, the likes of Team Atmodic, the likes of even Jess Games, our very own Jess Games within our League Racing community, all content creators for EA, all, unfortunately, I think, saying what they want to, what they are being paid to say, instead of being said what they really truly think about this game. And I think it comes to a point where community's got to step up. We as a community have got to step up. WOR, PSGL, the likes, all the big leagues, all the small leagues as well, who've been absolutely pushed under the bus in recent weeks and in recent months. I think as a community we need to lead absolute development on this game, because without League Racing community there is no Formula 1 game, and as simple as that. We run multiplayer leagues. WOR, one of the best leagues out there. PSGL, one of the best leagues out there. All have had glitches this season, and all, unfortunately, are having to pay the price for what is shoddy coding at the end of the day, and we want something done about it. It's as simple as that, and if we're not being listened to, we will make you listen. It's as simple as that. The community needs to step forward. Your social media platforms, get on to Codemasters right now, on this stream, no matter when, but get on to Codemasters and ask for community-led development of this game, because at the end of the day, it is an absolute joke. We pay good money and our own money for this game, and not really a single thing is done about it. And I think that's a real shame, because we need community-led development right from the front. And before I go on more of a rant, I think I've said what I need to say.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because I think for a lot of people, this game, driving-wise, is the best this game has felt in a long time. For a lot of people, including myself. The physics engine on this game and how this game physically feels to drive is so much better than we've had in previous years. It's so much nicer to drive. But coming with that is all of these problems. I mean, we are now nearly 5 months into the game cycle, and majority of leagues still can't run a formation lap because of the tired warm-up glitch, which is a fundamental issue that has never been a problem in previous games. So how on earth it's reared its head in this game, I do not know. This is not the first. This is not the first time that we've seen these lower temperatures. Like tire temperatures aren't a new thing to the Formula 1 game. So why they are broken on the formation lap, I do not know. And as Marlon's put in the chat as well, yeah, crossplay has not helped this at all. Since they've added crossplay, desync has been through the roof. So anybody going for crossplay, I'm looking at one league in particular, anybody going for crossplay in seasons coming up good luck to you, because I don't know how you're going to survive with that. It's going to be so difficult to get that working for a full season. And yeah, there's just so many things fundamentally wrong with this game, along with the fact that obviously we're getting the update next week, but all of our cars are out of touch with what they look like in real life. By a good half a year we are behind in terms of what the cars look like. It is such a shame. It definitely feels like other things aren't being prioritized correctly, so we'd like to see something be done about it. And it's a shame because Codemasters can do it. I mean, other games than Codemasters, like the Dirt series games, never really have a problem with them. They are really, really well built games and they have a great life cycle, so why we can't replicate it on the F1 side, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. So we're getting back racing, luckily. Rant over. Rudy now coming through the final couple of corners on the run towards the line, and Rudy will lead the way. But look at Jerry already on the back of Daniel, who's had a real shocker of a start actually under the safety car restart. Rudy, Jensen, Steph get away. That might just be the top three towards the end as Akila's just sends it on Pedro in towards turn 1, gets the job done. Beautiful move by Akila. He soon needs into 7th, and now Jerry right on the back of Daniel has got to try and get him in towards turn 5. He's not going to quite get him down in towards Raffles, pull up for the pillars of the time. Rudy, Jensen, Steph, your top 3. But watch out for Jerry. He now comes on the outside line in towards turn 7 at Memorial Corner. Daniel's going to have to try and hang him on in there. He doesn't. Jerry Thuney's into 4th. And now on that sort of soft compound of tyres, he is going to be so much quicker than everyone else. The Talent Factory man, the AlphaTauri, is roaring now into contention. And he's got the VSR boys maybe in his back pocket in towards the Singapore Sling. Here he comes on the back of Steph into the Singapore Sling. Not going to go for the move there. But the majority of corners now are going to be hemmed in for Jerry. He needs to make these moves done, and he needs to make these moves stick very soon indeed. Like into the hairpin from that 2 mile back to the inside line. Little bit of contact, little bit of forceful contact there from Jerry, but he's now going to get the run down in towards turn 14. Let's Rudy and Jensen get away in terms of the 2 Ferraris. He goes all the way around the outside of turn 14, head off in towards the wall. Steph nearly puts him in the wall, but he still gets the job done. Jerry Thuney's into 3rd. Not sure if he picked up damage. I don't think he did. Jerry Thuney's into 3rd. Steph put him in the wall, but Jerry just too good.
Yeah, too good of a move there. We had to get that one done, and Steph, yeah, I think was just desperately trying to defend it, but it was already pretty much through at that point by the time Jerry was out on the outside. So, yeah, he's up into 3rd. Has he got enough time to get the Ferrari? He's going to have to get Jensen pretty much immediately if he can do it. We're on to the final lap of the race, so he's going to have to get Jensen in the first sector and try and get Rudy on the final part of the lap. Further down the field, Asacombe trying to work his way back through this field after a horror show of a race for his side of things. The Red Bulls are so slow now on their old medium compound tyres. They've got a queue of cars lining up behind them for a spot in the top 5, and Akila looks like he might be the one to try and take that top 5 position. Jerry not close enough, I don't think, on the run down to Raffles Boulevard. He's pushing like crazy, but I don't think he's going to be close enough into 7. He's going to have to maybe think about a move at the hairpin like he did on the previous lap. I don't think he's got enough time potentially to catch Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy and Jensen, I think all of that holding up by Steph has done him the world of good, but here's Jerry on the back coming through turn number 8. He is a man on an absolute mission. He's got his Wheater fix, and he's now flying on the back of Jensen and towards the Singapore Sling. Going to try and get him to the inside line. He's going to try and think about going for an unorthodox move somewhere out on track, maybe in towards turn 11. Not quite. Now across the Anderson Bridge. And he was this far back when he got Steph. Now, is he going to go this far back? No, he doesn't try that and might get it, actually. The run down in towards turn 14. He is playing an absolute game here. Jerry on the back of Jensen, running down the straight. But Jensen's got too much speed and too much EOS to burn as he looks up in towards turn 14 now, Jensen. And Jerry all out of shape as well. This is absolutely on the limit. Akila, Harry, Daniel, not sure what's happened in the background. Harry has crashed out of the race. But Rudy leads the way from Jensen in 2nd. Jerry has done the spawn. Jerry is round, coming through turn number 17, and that is him done. And it's going to be a Ferrari coronation at the front end of the field. They picked the right strategy in the end. Rudy and Jensen round the final couple of corners. Another lap, I think these guys would have been batting, and I would have paid to see that. Rudy round the final corner on the run to the line, wins here in Singapore in what was really bad in terms of driving standards. Jensen there in 2nd, Steph there in 3rd, Akila is 4th, and Jerry has spun out the final corner. And so has Krypton, I think, in the background. No, Asacombe spins in the background even. So Jerry's 8th. Daniel there is 9th somehow. I think he must have picked up a penalty. Asacombe now to the line. He doesn't care, I think, in 10th. Don't blame him, to be honest. Ryan Bartlett to the line as well. He finishes there in 11th and doesn't pick up the fastest lap of the race there as well. In what was a real chaotic ending to the Singapore Grand Prix. A real chaotic Singapore Grand Prix. Driver of the day, all about the in-game fans, is somehow Kryptonite, which I don't really get, to be honest, but the game rewards it, so the game wants to be honest, but there we are. Krypton takes driver of the day. What about the in-game fans? I think, though, in terms of the strategy call, Rudy and Jensen had it absolutely nailed on. A Ferrari 1-2, and may I say it? Welcome back, Jensen. That was well needed.
Yeah, I think for Jensen's confidence, that was definitely well needed. It was a good result. Yeah, that's welcome to the world of the Formula 1 game. We're talking about the glitches. You can't see the podium emotes anymore. You just see the underside of the podium itself, which is brilliant. Yeah, it's a much needed confidence boost for Jensen, and a great result as well for Rudy. And I think fair play to the Ferrari drivers. They were the only ones really this entire race that were clean and were smart and didn't do any silly moves. They just played it safe when they needed to, and they got the result they needed from it as well. It was a great drive from them. By the way, just a note on what happened on that final lap of that race. The two Red Bulls basically put each other in the wall trying to fight for P5, and then got ploughed into and then Akila managed to get through all of that carnage, but in the two Red Bulls putting themselves in the wall, we then had Asicombe spinning in sympathy of that as well. So yeah, everybody pretty much crashed on that final lap, and like you saw, both of the AlphaTauris blowing good results as well at the very end there with 2 spins. So yeah, disaster, absolute disaster for us. The first half of the race was all right. The second half of the race was absolutely was just shocking.
Yeah, absolutely shocking. I think he was going to say something else then, to be honest. I agree. Rudy out on top from Jensen in second, Steph there in third. In the end, 3, probably the cleanest drivers on the grid. Akila had absolutely no trouble through that race. He finished there in 4th. Krypton there in 5th in the end from 13th on the grid. We have to give him credit. Pedro Aroca 7th. Jerry in 8th. Daniel in 9th. Asicom in 10th. Lineballer in 11th. Harry and the rest obviously DNFing out on track. And I don't really know what to make of that race, to be honest. I think Krypton, to be honest, I don't want to repeat this on the stream, but all I'm going to say is I'd be ashamed that he is put in the Discord. And to be honest, I'd be ashamed as well if I was a driver here in Singapore who competed tonight and obviously made contact with each other, because it's not on. This is top tier racing. This is top tier WOR PS platform. Obviously, if you are watching from an Xbox, from Legacy Division, or from PC, you will have your own opinions, obviously, of what the racing is like in driving standards. But I can tell you for a fact that the Xbox and PC driving standards are not as shocking as what we have seen there in PC. So frankly, I think everyone's going to get their act together for next week, because unfortunately, we're in Japan next week, which is not, again, really a great track for driving standards. So if that is the case, and Japan is going to be one of those races once again, what can we expect out on track? Surely we've got to get better than what we have just seen in terms of an absolute diabolical straight from the top tier of PlayStation, Tier 1 and WO.
Yeah, the only vision I've really got in my head is the dreaded turn 1 contact we always see at Japan, where someone leaves it inside or on the outside, they just make contact. Yeah. I am a little bit worried about Japan. I mean, the previous race before this one wasn't great for racing standards. We've had it all season long. It is such a shame, because so many of these drivers have so much potential and they have so much great pace that you could see them doing a lot. I mean, some of these drivers will eventually probably end up in the places like Challengers and things like that as well. And that's obviously a much bigger audience than what we've got here in WOR. You can't be having that kind of racing in these kind of situations. It's just not a good look, and it's a shame, because there is ample opportunity. We've seen it in many other leagues. We've seen it, like you say, on Xbox and the PC side of things. This game allows great racing. There's so much more control over these cars. You can do a lot more with them setup-wise, of course, as well. There's so much opportunity with this game to be able to have clean racing, and it just feels like it's so much worse, the racing standards on this game. They weren't great on the previous game towards the end of the cycle when people stopped really caring about the seasons as they kind of died down. But so we're not even through the first half of the game cycle, and we're seeing this kind of racing already. These drivers know better than to do that. And with the teams they're representing as well, teams like Talent Factory and VSR, they're such big teams in our space that they need to be sorting this out in amongst their drivers. The managers of those teams need to be on to their drivers, telling them that this is just a terrible look and we can't be rewarding this kind of driving, because it is just shambolic. And I feel so sorry for the stewards, because at this point, the amount of stewards reports we're going to be getting in for this kind of driving standards just almost makes the racing finish that we've just seen null and void, because it's going to be completely different by the time the stewards report comes out with the amount of penalties we've got. Because so many people will be getting penalties, the order might not be different, but we'll see people finishing a minute down with penalties. So it's yeah, it is such a shame. It is really such a shame to see that the season kind of drop off a little bit in terms of racing standards as it has recently. It is such a shame, and we want to see better from these drivers. We know they can do better. We've seen better from them in the past, so I really hope they can sort it out. But yeah, I don't know. Personally, for me, I don't know if you feel the same, but I can't take another race like that personally, commentary wise, because it's just not fun for us either to commentate over racing like that.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think we'll hang you to that word there, Aiden, because I honestly think if we get into the race like that in PS platform, you might not see us towards the end of the season, because I don't want to be commentating on diabolical driving standards from top tier guys who clearly know better than what they should be acting out on track. I mean, this is a game. Yeah, most of these guys are probably teenagers. Grow up, be a teenager, and take responsibility for your actions. That is the big thing we can learn from this race here in Singapore. If we don't want to claim for your actions, to be honest, WR or in racing in general, league racing might not just be for you. But there we are. I think, honestly, in my final comment, we should just find them $7 million and 10% reduction in car development and then have done with it. But there we are.
Well, I won't say my opinions on that penalty. I won't say my opinions on that, but yeah, something needs to be done. Like we say, something needs to happen, because it feels like we're getting this week in and week out and nothing's really changing. So yeah, something needs to be done about these driving standards.
Yeah, definitely so. Krypton, to be fair, in the Discord is very, very angry, and to be honest, we are probably going to be very, very angry as well off camera as well. Hyper saying in the chat as well. Agree. Driving standards on PSWR is all over the place. Was almost the same last game as well. Yeah, and the sports update, obviously, I think last game, if I recall, actually brought better racing. Hopefully it does not do the polar opposite of what we are thinking, because we cannot take any more of this. As I say, it's PS top tier racing. I'd rather commentate, honestly, on WR PS tier 2 at this point, because I know for a fact they might be slower in terms of standards of drivers, but you've got the likes of Akila, the likes of Pedro Silva who have came in this season, who have delivered on the top tier. Those are drivers for the future, and I'd rather commentate on them, to be frankly honest, than rather commentate on a bunch of Eagles going around the track for 31 laps. And that's as brutally as I'm going to put it. If you don't agree with me, then it's your own opinion. But there we are. I think, honestly, episode 2 of the Aiden Carter and James Head podcast for WR is certainly going to be coming up next week if we get a race like what we did this week in Japan.
Don't worry, something will break in the sports update and we'll have something else to rant about next week.
We will. If it breaks the whole game, I think I'd probably be a fan of it, to be honest. I'd rather sit and watch really good racing than sit and commentate on this. But there we are. I feel so sorry as well for Luke Humphries, of course, as the owner in general of WR, for Dan Spreen, and for FVR Milan, who obviously the league coordinators for PS Tier 2, for PS Tier 1 and Tier 2 in general for the PlayStation platform. And I'd honestly, if I was looking at this race, I'd be utterly ashamed of the drivers that you have under your control, because we deserve better. Us as commentators deserve better. These guys as viewers who take up their free time as well as our own free time as well to commentate, obviously deserve better. And the league owner, Luke Humphries, he deserves better. He wants to see really good racing throughout as well. That's what the foundation of WR, and in fact the foundation of any league, was set up on. Clean and competitive racing. If you're not delivering that, you're failing as a league. It's as simple as that. And of course, the drivers have to take responsibility for their actions. Anyways, felt like we've ranted more than we've actually commentated on this live stream, but we are going to end it off swiftly here before we get kicked off the air about our topical opinions from tonight's racing here in Singapore. We, of course, are going to be back next week for the Japanese Grand Prix. I'm praying that the standards are going to be better, but I'm just warning you now, if you skip to the end of this live stream and you've reached this point, don't hope for Japan. Honestly, pray every single day this week and over the weekend to, honestly, for good driving standards, because we do want a spooktacular, not, honestly, an absolute dire straight as what we've seen certainly here in Singapore tonight. And final words from me, and very happy words, I've got to say. Happy Halloween for Monday, everyone, because we're not obviously going to be online until next week. So that means happy Halloween. Hopefully you all have a responsible Halloween as well. And the sports update, I have heard, is coming out the day after. So if that's the case, it's going to be very interesting indeed. Anyways, we're going to get off the air. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you to Mr. Aidan Carter, of course, for joining me in the commentary box as always. Been an absolute pleasure, even if we didn't have the standards of driving tonight. We'll leave you all with our sponsors, of course, Grid Finder. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.